Season 4, we anxiously await, and we got to see Jonathan Roumie in Jesus Revolution as well. And I'm sure many of us have questions. I'll try to get a couple of your questions in, besides some of my own. Jonathan Roumie plays Jesus. Thanks for doing a little bit of an interview with us, Jonathan.
Oh, my pleasure, Todd. Thanks for having me.
This is so cool. Now, as an actor, this wasn't your initial role. Did you try out for a different character?
So for the series itself, I was cast as Jesus from the beginning, but my history with Dallas goes back about 10 years. As of next spring, I auditioned for a short film for his church's Good Friday service. He was like sort of the media director, and every Easter they would do a short film, and so he did one about the two thieves, the sort of a proposed origin story for the two thieves crucified alongside of Jesus. And originally for that short film, I auditioned for the one of the thieves, and then I didn't get it. And they, like, 2 days later, they called me back to. Well, I didn't know I didn't get it until they actually called me back to read for the part of Jesus. And I'm like, oh, I guess I didn't get the other one. So I read for Jesus, and then as Dallas tells it, about 10 seconds in, he said, "That's my Jesus guy there." And so I ended up. We had a great experience. I ended up doing two more films over the next 3 years with him for the same church that he was working for. And then it was like a year and a half later, he called me to do. He asked me to play Jesus for the series. So yeah, that's how that worked.
Wow. Now, in preparing for the role, I got to imagine that this is just an extraordinarily huge thing for you to tackle. I mean,
Mm,
and you're doing great as far as I'm concerned,
thank you.
anyways.
Thanks.
Was there like one part of just trying to get into, just say, the character for the acting part that took a little extra work?
I think anytime you're playing somebody, um, first of all, that existed in real life, but in this case had Christians believe he was divine as well as human. So when trying to portray the divinity of Jesus, that becomes a little more tricky. So I end up really just trying to stay in my lane and rely on the script, and then what I believe, as a Christian myself, relying on my faith and trying to kind of get out of the way and just let God sort of shine through the character. Um, and and that's as much as I can anticipate or try to plan when it comes to playing the divinity of Jesus. So for me, that's been the biggest challenge. And there are moments are like, where we ask ourselves, and I mean, it's a great theological question: how much did Jesus know? And to what extent did he know what was happening? Who, the preciseness of the events that were going to take place. And so every so often, if there are moments to try to infuse what that kind of premonition or precognition kind of looks like, I'll try to incorporate that into certain scenes.
I was just watching last two episodes of season 3, and there's a lot
Mm,
of tension going on.
yeah.
I mean, Jesus had to live in that constant tension, but do you feel like that he broke it quite a bit? And do you feel like Jesus may have been funnier than we imagine him?
I think he would have had to have been,
Yeah,
because in order to survive life as a human being on planet Earth, if you don't have a sense of humor, it's going to be it's going to be a pretty tough life. And I don't think anyone can go through their entire lives, um, hopefully, without having some access to you know levity and what it means to have a sense of humor, and or to at least appreciate sense of humor to tell a joke, even if it's a bad joke, to at least take a shot at it. I mean, it's part of what makes us completely human is humor. And I would have think he, especially knowing what his mission was and knowing who he assembled to sort of continue his mission going forward, knowing how flawed we are as humans. um, I think he would have had to understand that and um, incorporate that into his own humanity. I mean, as God, I mean, he invented it. He invented that quality within us. So I would imagine he'd have it in spades.
Mm. Well, help us out as an actor, because like as a Christian, we endeavor in our lives to follow Christ and to um, do as he does. In
Hmm.
effect, almost the same thing as you do, but
Mm,
we're not actors. So, is
right.
there a particular skill that you could pass on to us from your experience so far to just help an everyday person follow Christ?
I think if you start by asking yourself those very deceivingly impactful words, what would Jesus do
Hmm.
in any situation? I think for me, that becomes a mantra for life. And, how would Jesus react? Um, would be, an adjunct to that. Um, I think we have to continue to remind ourselves of the necessity of humility, um, of the dangers of pride in our lives, um, and being mindful of the things that trap us into sin. Usually, that stem from some sort of pride to begin with. Um, it's pride being considered one of, probably the father of all other sins. When you have an excess of pride, then everything else starts to crumble and lead. It becomes like the doorway into to just bad decision making. So I think having a sense of humility, and then having a sense of forgiveness and mercy, knowing that God has been so merciful with us in our lives. If you think about all the ways that things could be much worse for us, and I know there are people probably listening there like, well, I got it pretty bad. I'm like, yeah, it's we all go through something. I mean, it all becomes pain and strife and tribulation become relative depending on your circumstances and your environment. But it can always be worse,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah,
mean, that's
exactly.
that's how I feel. Things can always be worse. I mean, if you're listening to this station, like you're already miles ahead of so many other people, like the majority of the rest of the world, of the undeveloped world. And I think when you recognize that and know that, okay, we all need a little grace. I think that kind of keeps you. I think it kind of keeps you in place in the heart of where Jesus is.
Okay. A couple fun questions before I ask you about season four.
Mm.
Do you read the New Testament now, and it's does it seem like a script to you?
Um,
Do you read it that way?
no, I don't.
No?
No, I kind of read it for its timeless wisdom and the
Good.
things, like it's living, right? So every time you read it, I think you get something new out of it.
And I had kind of a joke. I would ask, there have been many people that have portrayed Jesus in different films,
Mm.
some better than others. But if you auditioned for Jesus and you didn't get the role, I mean, does that feel, how would you feel? Like, did I not measure up? Like, is there a standard
No,
there? No?
I would just feel like I felt when I didn't get the role for that the penitent thief in that short film. I just said I guess there was somebody that was better for that role, better suited for that role for the director's vision than I was. You can't look, man, you can't take any of this stuff personally,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to work. I mean, it's not, none of it's personal, unless in the very rare instances it is personal between like the person casting a project and if they bring somebody in just to humiliate them. I mean, that's kind of devious, but I mean, for the most part, it's just a job, it's a job interview, and it just happens to be the kind of a career where it's really hard to kind of land a job because
Mm,
there are so many factors that go into that decision that most people aren't really aware of. And
Right.
as an actor, you're not even aware of them until you spend 5, 10, 15 years in the trenches and be like, oh yeah, I didn't get it. You expect not to get it, and then when you do get it, it's like a bonus. So
Yeah. All right. Season 4 coming up.
yeah.
As much as you're allowed, any little tidbit of a maybe a crumb of a spoiler? Like we know the story,
Um,
but you know what I'm saying.
yeah, I think tensions are high. I mean, you talked about that in season 3, and tensions continue to simmer and to become exacerbated because ultimately we're working towards the cross, right? And so now, the authorities, not just the Jewish authorities, but the Roman authorities are well aware of Jesus and his mission and the rebellious nature of his mission and how it's affecting just everyday life, and it's causing problems. And we see that unfolding in a more intense way this season.
Hmm. Season 4 of The Chosen. So many ways that you can watch it, stream it, download it, and share it. Playing Jesus in The Chosen, Jonathan Roumie. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Great talking to you.
Thanks, Todd. I do want to make one little addition that we, at least in the United States, and I'm not sure about Canada, but we will be initially releasing season 4 theatrically.
Oh,
So
that's
if you're
right.
in a place where you can watch it in the movie theaters, we've leveled up technically even from last season, and you're going to be blown away. And I think it's a story that's meant to be seen on the big screen first and foremost, and then eventually it'll migrate to streaming platforms.
Yeah, bring a church group or a youth group.
That's it.
Would be awesome. Jonathan Roumie, thanks so much.
Thanks, Todd.
Boom.